Hello everyone, welcome to our audiobook channel. If you enjoy this story or want to hear more exciting content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Your feedback helps us improve and bring even more captivating stories. Enjoy listening. Chapter 1. Heavenly Sound Sect. At the bottom of the Cliff of Broken Hearts, the river snaked past the mountains and forests. The sun shone brightly on the cold, clear water. Bang! There was a muffled sound coming from a small wooden house at the shore. The house had only 2 floors. A fence surrounded this small house. Spirit herbs creeped on the fence and gave off a fragrance that wafted in every direction. On the 2nd floor of this small house, Jiang Hao crashed onto the wall. A beautiful woman, dressed in thin gauze, moved towards him. She pressed a long sword against his neck. The blade sliced through the surface of his skin as blood spilled slowly. Jiang Hao knew death was just a moment away. This was a disaster. He had just finished trimming the spiritual herbs and was preparing himself to cultivate when suddenly, a woman, with flushed face and chaotic lifeblood, had descended from the sky. The woman looked very graceful, but her focus was muddled. She was either poisoned or possessed. He didn't want to help, but her cultivation was formidable. She had pulled him easily to the 2nd floor, up the stairs, and flung him against the wall. This was the first time he had been manhandled this badly. His senses were pretty good, but it was such a shame he could do nothing but endure this violence. She was flawlessly beautiful. In fact, she was perfect, especially if the murderous intent in her eyes could be ignored. It was early in the morning when she regained her consciousness and swung her sword at him. Jiang Hao could see in her cold eyes that she must have remembered everything that had happened last night. She certainly hesitated in killing him. "Senior, there is some misunderstanding between us." Jiang Hao really wanted to explain, but he didn't know what kind of misunderstanding was there between them. "Are you a disciple of the Heavenly Sound Sect?" the woman asked coldly. Jiang Hao, too aware of the sword still at his neck, could only answer in a nervous voice, "Yes." "Eat this." The woman took out a pill and offered it to him. "What is it?" asked Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao felt a kick to his stomach that caused him so much pain that he doubled over. She pushed the pill into his mouth. The woman quickly grabbed the falling clothes draped over her body and wrapped herself tightly in them. She was surrounded by a pink mist. A moment later, she disappeared from the window. Phew! Jiang Hao heaved a heavy sigh of relief. He touched his injured neck. The woman's arrival must have been an accident, but her murderous intent was real, no doubt, thought Jiang Hao, as he walked over to the balcony and looked around to make sure she was gone. His heart was still palpitating in fear. "She almost killed me. She is ridiculously strong." Although she was incredibly beautiful and they had spent a night together, he could not just tell her that what was done and she shouldn't be bothered by it, not when this was the immortal cultivation world, and she could very well kill him in an instant. Not to mention the Devil Gate. The slightest carelessness could result in a vicious attack. It's better to live in a peaceful world. Jiang Hao shook his head and sighed. He had transmigrated for a total of 19 years. He had had a rough childhood from the time he was born to the time his stepmother had sold him to the Devil Sect. If he hadn't had the figure and aptitude to meet the criteria for the Devil Sect's recruitment, he would have been sacrificed as a dead soul. If he could choose, he would join a famous and orthodox sect. Maybe the Haoshan sect, which was the most powerful sect in this world. Unfortunately, he was stuck with the Devil Sect. Fortunately, after he started to cultivate, some changes appeared in his body. There were some new abilities and changes. Jiang Hao focused his attention and looked at the panel that appeared before him. No one could see this except him. Name, Jiang Hao. Age, 19. Cultivation, Level 9 of Lifeblood Refinement. Cultivation Method, Heavenly Sound 100 Revolutions. Supernatural Ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, unlocked. Lifeblood, 100/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 100/100, can be cultivated. Divine ability, 1/3, cannot be obtained. He let out a long sigh of relief. Lifeblood, cultivation, and divine abilities were accumulated during normal chores. Planting spirit herbs, cleaning demons and beasts could help him increase them. He could wander around and pick up air bubbles to harvest these things. Sometimes he even found magical treasures and cultivation aids. However, it wasn't easy to accumulate lifeblood and cultivation to reach 100. It had taken him a few years to accumulate it to 100 for a second time. The first time it reached 100, his body became tougher, and his cultivation increased from the 3rd level to the 8th level of the lifeblood refinement realm. Fortunately, he could digest it bit by bit, otherwise it would have been too noticeable. He went from being an outer disciple to an inner disciple because of this. At the Cliff of Broken Hearts, he guarded the spirit herb garden. It was convenient for him to walk to the sect from this place. Besides, he could raise his cultivation level faster here and didn't need to pretend to be ordinary like everyone else. The Devil Sect. If he was careless, he might be killed by his fellow disciples for entertainment. He might lose his innocence too. Yesterday was the proof of that. Divine abilities were different from lifeblood and cultivation. Lifeblood and cultivation could be achieved when one reached the 10th level, while divine abilities required 3 fragments to obtain a complete ability. So far, he had only obtained 1 divine ability. But he was proud of it. Baby steps were better than nothing at all. Besides, 9 revolutions death substitution was a decent divine ability. He returned to his room and stared at the sheets that were stained red. He sighed and decided to change the sheets and his clothes. These bloodstains had probably saved him from death today. I don't know who she is. I hope she isn't from the Heavenly Note Sect, he murmured. Otherwise, if she is angry enough to kill me, I will be in trouble. He was ashamed that he couldn't protect himself properly. He tidied his bedding and changed into clean clothes. He left his house and headed to the spirit herb garden to tend to the emotion-severing grass. He would try to break through the foundation establishment stage tonight. His lifeblood and cultivation were already at their 100, which was different from the conversion rate of 10. I need to go to the library and find out what kind of pill that woman fed me, thought Jiang Hao. I must be more vigilant. Her sudden appearance is out of the ordinary. The Heavenly Note Sect was among the top sects. It was strange of any other reputable sect going after him, but he had to be on his guard. Chapter 2. Heavenly Note Section. 100 Flowers Lake. The 100 Flowers Lake located at the highest point of the Heavenly Note Sect was a beauty to behold. There were hundreds of flowers in the lake, hence the name. The lake water was calm and clear. Occasionally, spirit beasts appeared from the lake and caused the surface to ripple. There was a small island in the center, the Crimson Flower Pavilion. On this pavilion was a beautiful woman dressed in red. She touched the front of her dress and a trace of disgust flashed through her eyes. A gentle breeze blew, and the flowers swayed. A woman wearing a delicate white dress landed on the pavilion. She looked at the woman dressed in red with admiration and respect. Sect Master, you've come out of your closed-door cultivation. The woman dressed in red moved slightly and looked behind her. She looked at the woman dressed in white. She was incredibly beautiful, but her eyes remained cold. The woman dressed in white lowered her head in fear. Bazi, does no one remember the glory of Heavenly Note Sect anymore? The woman in red was the sect master of the Heavenly Note Sect, Yue Ying. Before she took over, the Heavenly Note Sect used to be a second-rate sect. It was only because of her that the Heavenly Note Sect had claimed the heights to become the topmost sect in the world. On the very first day when she became the sect master of the Heavenly Note Sect, she launched a great war and subdued all the scattered forces around her. The Great War lasted for 30 years, and blood flowed like rivers. In the last 30 years, the Heavenly Note sect continued becoming stronger and stronger, and the resources increased. The name of the Heavenly Note sect resounded in every direction. After the Great Battle, Yue Ying began to manage the operations of the sect. In just 10 years, she distributed the resources evenly among the various offshoots, allowing the sect its own freedom and letting the Devil sect operate on its own. She had then entered the closed-door cultivation and lived in seclusion for 60 years. Please enlighten us, sect master. Beizi fearfully knelt on the ground. Beizi was one of the 4 guardian elders of the Heavenly Note sect. She had gained the trust of the Heavenly Note Demoness and had taken over the management of the Heavenly Note sect. If the Heavenly Note sect had somehow regressed in the recent years with no developments, she would be the one at fault. She was terrified. Yue Ying stared at Beizi indifferently. She did not say a word. Aside from the sound of the gentle breeze blowing in the lake, there Beizi's unsteady breathing. Yue Ying withdrew her unwavering gaze from Beizi. She had been in seclusion for 60 years. Everything should have gone smoothly, but at the critical moment she was ambushed. It wasn't a member of the demonic sect. The cultivation technique which was used to attack her was the Azure Mountain's 3 pure parts. The method had been despicable, to say the least. The woman had hidden toxins in her body. If she was killed, the toxins would have invaded everything around her. It would have been impossible to contain it. That was why Yue Ying had gone to the nearest cliff, the Cliff of Broken Hearts. That was how last night had come to pass. That was a method she couldn't defend against. Azure Mountain shouldn't have used it. Have there been any unusual movements from other famous sects recently? Yue Ying asked calmly. No. Beizi shook her head. Azure Mountain is the most reputable sect closest to us, but they've been busy with the Dao conference recently and don't seem to have the time for anything else. Besides, sect master, you fought them before so they wouldn't dare to do anything reckless. Is that so? Yue Ying smiled. Beizi didn't dare speak in fear. Keep the matter of me coming out of seclusion a secret for now. You can continue to take care of the Heavenly Note sect for now. Also, investigate the disciples of our sect and see if we have any spies from other sects within our walls. Yes. Understood, said Beizi quickly. After a moment of pause, Yue Ying asked, Beizi, you aren't a spy for the other sects, are you? Beizi touched her head to the ground and pleaded in fear. Sect master, how could Beizi ever even think of such a thing? Yue Ying looked at Beizi for a long time, then nodded and softly said, you may leave. Beizi stood up shakily, and turned around to leave. Just then she heard the sect master's voice again. Have the sect's information ready. Mark out the new developments. I want to see what you have achieved in recent years. Yes, sect master, said Beizi and left the pavilion. Watching Beizi leave, Yue Ying raised her hands slightly and pressed the back of her hands to her lips and coughed. 60 years ago, she had believed in Beizi, and 60 years later, she still believed in her, but only Beizi knew where she was during her seclusion. When she was attacked, the first thought that came to her mind was that Beizi had betrayed her. So far, she felt that Beizi could still be of use. Yue Ying closed her eyes and remained in silence. The Cliff of Broken Hearts. Spirit Herb Garden. Jiang Hao walked all the way to the entrance of the Spirit Herb Garden. He wanted to go in and collect some bubbles. It could increase his strength. This place was quite far from where he lived. It was around the center of the valley. The whole of the Cliff of Broken Hearts was like a valley. A small stream flowed from one corner. That was where Jiang Hao's house was situated. The place was quiet and peaceful, free from unwelcome people. The Spirit Herb Garden was surrounded by a formation, and the entrance was guarded by 2 outer sect disciples. They were both at the 5th level of Lifeblood Refinement realm, which was indeed impressive. If anyone managed to reach the 8th level of lifeblood refinement realm, they would be allowed to join the inner sect. He was at this stage. But to secure the status of being an official inner sect disciple, he needed to break through to the foundation establishment stage. If, by some reason, anyone was not able to reach the foundation establishment stage by the age of 40 but was still a part of the inner sect, then it would be better to take on a mission and leave for a while. Otherwise, they would be despised by fellow disciples and ostracized by others in the sect. Their cultivation resources would be snatched away, and they would never be able to rise up again. These weren't just speculations. He had seen it happen once before. When he had just entered the inner sect and went to receive his resources, he had seen a 40-year-old man of the 9th level of lifeblood refinement realm being ridiculed and robbed of his resources. Jiang Hao had felt sorry for him. He had given the man a medicinal pill when no one was round. The man had been so shocked by this that he fell into despair. Jiang Hao never saw the man again. He had heard that the missions weren't easy, either. 9 out of 10 people who went on a mission outside ended up dead. Chapter 3. Senior Brother Jiang. The two disciples greeted him. Jiang Hao nodded and smiled back. He then walked in. The spirit herb garden was a vast field, and there were many types of spirit herbs. At the center of the spirit herb garden was a bright red 9-leafed flower. This flower was called the emotion-severing grass. The fragrance of the flower wasn't noticeable ordinarily. However, when the petals fell, the fragrance would be so strong that it would waft in every direction. The scent of the flower was filled with spiritual energy and had the power to make people fall under an illusion and be trapped in love. If refined, it could be used as an ingredient for 3 types of medicinal pills. The first was the spirit gathering pill, which can absorb the surrounding spiritual energy and speed up one's cultivation. This was the easiest pill to make. The second was the emotion-severing pill, which can suppress the inner demons upon hearing it. If anyone took this pill during a great event like a promotion, the success rate went up by 20%. This pill was relatively difficult to make. The third was the Elysium world. This one was the riskiest of all. Eating this pill trapped a person in an illusion. If they succeeded, their cultivation would soar rapidly, but if they failed, they would die. It was extremely difficult to make. Jiang Hao looked at the simple pavilion in the center of the garden and walked towards it. As a newly promoted inner sect disciple, he had the duty of guarding the emotion-severing grass. He didn't need to stay here day and night to guard it. His main duty was to check the spirit herbs and make sure they were growing properly. Some other senior brothers and sisters guarded the garden at night. As he walked along the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao saw small bubbles floating around. Most of them were white. There was only one green bubble floating above some spirit herbs. In the past, he couldn't choose which one he needed. The bubbles would automatically merge into his body. But now, a notification appeared on the interface. Strength +1. Endurance +1. Spirit +1. Spirit gathering pill +1. Jiang Hao remained indifferent. This had happened countless times after all. This was why he had been in a hurry to become an inner sect disciple. It allowed him to visit more places and to obtain more things. The best example was the spirit herb garden. As long as he took care of it and planted more spirit herbs, he could take as much as it gave him. Strength and endurance could be absorbed automatically. His strength far exceeded those who were at the same level as him. Perhaps one day he could be stronger than all of them combined. I need a cultivation technique or a divine ability to conceal my cultivation, thought Jiang Hao. Since he had nothing he could use to conceal his cultivation, it was risky for him to advance quickly. It would attract attention and make him an easy target. The air bubbles were of different colors. The colors indicated their quality. They were usually white, green, blue and purple. White was the most common among the bubbles. They spawned everywhere. The energy could be absorbed for endurance, strength, etc. The green bubbles usually held medicinal pills and magical treasures. The lifeblood and cultivation were usually found in the blue bubbles, while the purple bubbles had some divine ability within them. He hadn't encountered any other bubbles beside the four colors. Below the pavilion, a fairy was waiting for him. Seeing him walk over, the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. The Heavenly Note sect had 12 main lineages, and the Cliff of Broken Hearts was one of them. The girl in front of him was from the inner sect of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, Fairy Yunruo. She was charming. It was the way of her cultivation method. Those from the Devil sect did not waste time to be charming, since it did not follow the same path of righteousness as the Ming sect. Every time Jiang Hao met someone from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, he got a headache. But he felt strange. Was his spirit stronger today? Jiang Hao was surprised, but he did not express it. "Greetings, Senior Sister Yunruo," said Jiang Hao. Fairy Yunruo smiled. "I heard Junior Brother is about to reach the Foundation establishment stage. Quite impressive, reaching the stage at a young age of 20. Just a bit of luck, Senior Sister Yunruo." Jiang Hao knew better than to be arrogant. But he sensed something was strange. His heart was calm today, even in front of Senior Sister Yunruo. Was something wrong with him? Fairy Yunruo smiled. "I know that Junior Brother is a decent person. If he seeks to join other sects, he will definitely be nurtured well." She thinks I am a decent person, thought Jiang Hao. He grew wary. He didn't know why other sects would say this unless they were watching him. He changed the subject. "Senior Sister is also here for spirit medicine." "Indeed. But the main reason I am here is to congratulate you. I think you will advance to the Foundation establishment stage within a year or two." Fairy Yunruo smiled happily. "Senior Sister's words are too precious. Thank you. I will find some herbs for you right now." After receiving the list and confirming that there were no problems, Jiang Hao turned around and left. The Senior Sister was definitely using charm. Usually, it would have been hard for him to focus with a clear mind when the charm took effect. He found the herbs she wanted and handed them to her. "Thank you, Junior Brother. I won't disturb you any longer," said Fairy Yunruo with a charming smile. "Senior Sister, you are too kind," said Jiang Hao with a polite smile. Fairy Yunruo turned around to leave. After taking a few steps, she turned back and whispered in his ear. "Junior Brother, if I give you the opportunity to join a famous immortal sect, will you seize it?" Jiang Hao was shocked. He looked at her in horror. "Pfft," laughed Fairy Yunruo. "Look how scared you are. This is the method of some immortal sects who use us from the devil path to recruit others. No need to look so scared. We would never get a chance otherwise." She smiled at him again. "Junior Brother, you have to be careful. Don't be fooled. You must figure it out." She left right after saying that. What does she mean? Figure what out, thought Jiang Hao. Suddenly, this Senior Sister didn't look harmless and charming anymore. It sounded like a joke the way she said it, but it was also possible that she was telling the truth. If she is a spy from another sect, am I being targeted, thought Jiang Hao. But why me? Is she trying to get my help in whatever she is doing? Or my own sect might be testing me because they suspect me of something. If she is a spy, then I only have two paths to take. 1, I refuse, and she will be killed by whoever sent her to keep everything under wraps. Or I agree to her proposal. But he didn't want to put himself in danger. Why not just continue to be a disciple of the devil sect and be safe? I need to reach the Foundation establishment stage first. Chapter 4. It was already evening when Jiang Hao walked out of the spirit herb garden. He spent little time on cursory checks to make sure everything was all right before he left. Usually, he tended to the herbs so that there would be more bubbles the next day. If not, the bubbles would be very rare, and he would have to rely on luck. That was why he had taken a few years to accumulate lifeblood and cultivation to reach 100. It was only after he became an inner sect disciple that he occasionally came into contact with supernatural powers. He learned that the more he tended to the herbs, the more bubbles they gave off. After returning to his house, Jiang Hao carefully observed his surroundings. When he was sure that no one had been there, he went into the training room and began to cultivate. The appearance of senior sister Yunruo and her words had worried him. It was always good to be careful. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, Jiang Hao opened his lifeblood and cultivation. When he entered the school, he was tested. His talent was above average. If he trained at the same pace, he could reach the foundation establishment stage by the age of 30 or 40. He was only 20 and much earlier than expected to reach the foundation establishment stage. There might be a certain bottleneck after it, but it should be easier to break through. After a while, Jiang Hao grimaced with pain. The lifeblood in his body churned and his spiritual energy surged up. The Heavenly Sound 100 revolutions operated wildly, absorbing lifeblood and spiritual energy. Crack! The sound of transformation rang out from Jiang Hao's body. His flesh, blood, and bones went through a lot of tempering. If he could endure it, he would be successful in building his foundation. The transformation lasted for a long time. In the early morning, the sound disappeared, and his lifeblood began to calm down. His spiritual energy also flowed along his meridians and returned to normal. Everything went smoothly. Jiang Hao opened his eyes. He could feel power surging through his body. I've reached the foundation establishment stage. Everything seems to have gone smoothly. It's much safer this way. He let out a long sigh and looked at the system interface. There were some changes. Age, 19. Cultivation, early foundation establishment stage. Cultivation method, Heavenly Sound 100 revolutions. Supernatural ability, 9 revolutions. Death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, can be learned. Lifeblood, 36/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 41/100, can be cultivated. I can now cultivate this divine ability, but there is no reward, thought Jiang Hao. He had thought that after reaching the foundation establishment stage, he might be given a new cultivation method. Although Heavenly Sound 100 revolution was powerful, it did not help him reach great heights. He needed a more powerful cultivation method. Forget it. I'll learn the daily report before I go to the spirit herb garden. I'll think of a way to deal with the cultivation technique later, said Jiang Hao to himself. Within an hour, Jiang Hao was finished with the daily report. He wasn't sure what it was used for exactly. Out of curiosity, he walked out of his residence and appraised the wooden house. Soon, he received the result. Jiang Hao's wooden house, built 3 years ago. It's made of green forest wood, sturdy and durable. It was personally built by Jiang Hao. It looks sturdy, but there are many hidden dangers in its internal structure. It could collapse at any time. Jiang Hao walked to the small spirit herb garden and picked up the air bubbles. He tended to the herbs. I will make some time to study architecture and modify the wooden house. Spirit herb garden. Cultivation +1. Ordinary spirit sword +1. Jiang Hao walked all the way into the attic and absorbed the air bubbles around it. It was the time of the day he enjoyed most. He relaxed for a while and walked to the spirit herb garden to help with its management. Most of the people who took care of the herb garden were ordinary people. They were very scared of the inner sect disciples in the past because carelessness meant death. Ever since Jiang Hao had been assigned to care for the garden, others weren't so afraid anymore. They felt Jiang Hao was kinder. His kindness wasn't really reputable in the devil sect, but he refused to kill ordinary people for entertainment. Fortunately, no one confronted him about it. Jiang Hao decided to keep his advancement to the foundation establishment stage a secret for now. 3 days later, he met senior sister Yunruo again. She knew that he had reached the foundation establishment stage. It wouldn't be a secret anymore. Fortunately, no one confronted him. After a few more days, senior sister Yunruo came looking for him just to talk and chat about their lives. She occasionally mentioned that being in the devil sect was not something she could control. She mentioned that when she was young, she wanted to be a good person. As she found Jiang Hao more frequently, his worries grew stronger. He extracted all his lifeblood and cultivation and fused them, just in case. A month later, Jiang Hao walked out of his house to a sunny day, but there wasn't any warmth anywhere. Senior sister Yunruo hasn't looked for me for the past few days. I wonder if she is all right. Or has something happened? He walked to the library. This month, he discovered something very serious. Senior sister Yunruo was a member of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. She was naturally charming and was a beauty of the sect. However, it seemed he couldn't react at all. He had tried to awaken his feelings, but there was no difference. All this gave him a bad feeling. Although his heart was set on the Dao and he did not want to be influenced by anything, it felt strange. This had happened after he met that woman. He knew that the pill she had fed him had done something to him. Jiang Hao researched in the library for 2 days and still couldn't find an answer. However, he came across a rare purple bubble. Ability fragment +1. It was a pleasant surprise. With an ability fragment, he would be able to obtain a brand new ability. Recently, the sect seems to be compiling the list of disciples. Did something happen? Jiang Hao heard people talking in the library. Compiling a list of disciples? Are they looking for someone in particular? Looking for a traitor maybe, said another person. Jiang Hao thought of senior sister Yunruo. He knew something was going to happen, but he had never expected that it would involve him. Senior sister Yunruo has been in the foundation establishment stage for many years. I don't have a high chance of winning against her. Jiang Hao began to think of the worst-case scenarios. He hoped he was just worrying too much and nothing of the sort would happen. Chapter 5. The next day, Jiang Hao went to the spirit herb garden following his usual schedule and returned in the evening. He didn't gain much that day, not even the common bubbles. No one came to him to ask for spirit herbs either. Senior sister Yunruo didn't appear. Jiang Hao did hear rumors along the way about traitors in the sect. According to them, most were already discovered. They were currently cleaning up the section. Fortunately, I don't have anything here. Otherwise, the traitors would definitely come this way. After returning to his house, Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He wasn't a traitor, and he definitely didn't want to be the one capturing them. It wasn't good to offend either side. The Heavenly Note sect was the devil sect, and everyone in the cultivation world wanted to beat the devil sect. Maybe one day it would be destroyed. He didn't want to offend other sects by capturing their spies either. Because traitors were the pawns of immortal sects. If he got involved, it would be hard to clear his name. There would be no hope for him. Shaking his head, Jiang Hao tended to the spirit herbs in the yard of his house. The ones he had were ordinary spirit herbs. It would be better if he could apply for better spirit herbs, but he couldn't afford to buy them. My cultivation is still weak, but it's too conspicuous and might attract trouble, thought Jiang Hao. It seems that I have to continue thinking of other ways. Should I just say that I got lucky and a bubble increased my cultivation sharply? Or should I just go outside and never come back here? Jiang Hao shook his head. None of them were good solutions. Leaving was not an option. The outside world was far more dangerous. Saying that he had a lucky encounter with a rare bubble wasn't convincing, either. As for betraying the sect, that was unsafe and risky. The Heavenly Note sect would never tolerate traitors. When he was new to the sect, he had heard about a disciple who had been in contact with an immortal sect. The people of the Heavenly Note sect did not express their stance at the beginning and did not pay any attention to it. 10 years later, When the disciple ventured out of the sect, the Heavenly Note sect killed them. Only then did people know that the Heavenly Note sect had been hiding for 10 years to kill one traitor. Jiang Hao was overwhelmed with his thoughts. He felt confused and lost. He finally abandoned all his worries and tended to the spirit herbs. The most important thing right now is to get stronger. He did not dare to increase his cultivation too quickly. There would be no suspicion if his lifeblood and basic strength increased at a rapid rate. He could also obtain more supernatural abilities. After tending to the herbs, Jiang Hao stood up, cleaned his hands and walked to his room to cultivate. However, he heard someone call him from behind. "Junior brother." It was a soft female voice. He turned around to see senior sister Yunruo, who looked very pale. Jiang Hao knew this wasn't good. They had met at the spirit herb garden mostly. But this time she had come to his house. And his gut feeling said she came with ill intentions. "Hello senior sister Yunruo. Are you looking for some spirit herbs?" asked Jiang Hao calmly. "Can we talk inside?" Yunruo smiled sweetly at Jiang Hao. "No, definitely not," thought Jiang Hao, but couldn't say it aloud. He did not want to alert the enemy. "Of course, senior sister," said Jiang Hao. "Please." He gestured for her to enter his house. He was on guard. His intuition warned him that there was something wrong with senior sister Yunruo. If he was careless, he would suffer. Inside the house, senior sister Yunruo's smiling face became serious. She looked at Jiang Hao. "Junior brother, can I trust you?" She corrected herself hurriedly. "No, rather you are the only one I can actually trust. I have observed you for many years and I know that you shouldn't be in the devil sect." Jiang Hao was shocked. What is she saying? Does she think I am a spy? Or is she trying to trick me? He pretended to be flustered and lowered his head. "Senior sister, I grew up in the Heavenly Note sect. I definitely don't think I can be anywhere else other than here." "I know. I just feel that you shouldn't stay in the devil sect. Your temperament isn't suitable for this place. You should go to the immortal sect. The Sunset Immortal Sect, which has a legacy of 10,000 years, is revered by the world. I know that you have a good heart. I know you feel like you don't belong here. This is the best opportunity I've found. Whether or not I can go from darkness to light, this is my only chance." Senior sister, could it be that you are?" Jiang Hao stammered in shock. He was indeed a little surprised now that his speculations had come true. Senior sister Yunruo was really a traitor. She even wanted to drag him down with her. "That's right, I am a true disciple of the Sunset Immortal Sect. I came here on a mission. My mission is complete, but I was discovered. I have no choice but to ask you for your help. Please help me hide things that I have obtained and send it to my sect. I promise that you will get a chance to join the Sunset Immortal Sect," she continued. "The reward that belongs to me will be yours. I know that I will die here." Fairy Yunruo displayed a resolute confidence and appeared unafraid of her impending death. This was her sacrifice. She had come to beg Jiang Hao to keep the item and send it to her section. Her resolve moved Jiang Hao. She didn't look like she was lying, but he still didn't want to do it. What if it was a trap, thought Jiang Hao. I know that junior brother has concerns. How about I leave the item with you in good faith? If I die, you can choose to report me. I have already been discovered anyway, so I won't drag you along with me. It won't do me any good, anyway, said Fairy Yunruo. She took out a jade pendant which was carved with a mysterious symbol. It didn't look ordinary. Jiang Hao frowned. Will I get into trouble if I refuse, thought Jiang Hao. Will she kill me? Would a righteous sect disciple be as ruthless as a devil sect disciple? Jiang Hao was unable to figure out anything with certainty. Besides, a curious fragrance kept wafting from around senior sister Yunruo. Junior brother. Fairy Yunruo bit her lip and looked at Jiang Hao pitifully. Jiang Hao, just for a moment, felt as though she might be trustworthy. He was about to take the pendant when he sensed that something was definitely wrong. An idea flashed through his mind. He activated his divine ability of daily appraisal. Appraise Senior Sister Yunruo. He silently activated the ability. Chapter 6. Jiang Hao had used that ability on many things. He had tried it on mountains, houses, flowers, trees. But never had he used it on a person. The situation confused him, so appraising her wasn't such a bad idea. The avatar activated and invisible symbols flashed before his eyes. The symbols reflected Senior Sister Yunruo in front of him. In an instant, every information about her flashed in his mind. It's effective. Jiang Hao was delighted. However, what he saw in his mind made his blood run cold. Yunruo, early Foundation establishment stage, an inner sect disciple of the Sunset Sect, undercover in the Heavenly Note Sect, in order to find out the whereabouts of the Heavenly Fragrance Deo flower. Because her identity is about to be exposed, she urgently needed a scapegoat. Seeing that you didn't act like a typical Devil Sect disciple, she targeted you. You fit the role of a scapegoat perfectly. She has been using enchantments on you to influence your mind. Once you agreed, she would kill you in her place as a traitor. How vicious, thought Jiang Hao. She acted so charming and resolute. The jade pendant was right in front of him. If he took it, she would use him as a scapegoat and have him killed. If he refused, maybe she would kill him anyway. She had been in the Foundation establishment stage for many years now. He must tread carefully. Jiang Hao realized that it would be very difficult for him to win against her in direct combat. Jiang Hao tried to think of a way. He extended his hand, pretending to take the jade pendant. Just before he touched it, he looked behind Senior Sister Yunruo in mock fear. Master, he stammered. Fairy Yunruo snapped around to look behind her. A spirit sword appeared in her hands. A stream of aura locked onto Jiang Hao. She intended to use him as a shield to defend herself. The jade pendant was dropped on the floor. Now, whoever was left would look guilty. She ran forwards shouting, Jiang Hao is the traitor, he. Fairy Yunruo froze. He had intended to let Jiang Hao take the fall but realized that there was no one there. It was too late for her to turn around. A dagger flashed and stabbed her in the neck. He had intended to kill her with one strike. He had no chance of winning in a direct confrontation against her. He didn't mind sneaking from behind. He had no intention of harming anyone, ever. He had never targeted anyone in his life. He just wanted to live peacefully and get stronger. But if others wanted to take advantage of his temperament and attack him, then he had the right to defend himself. The moment the dagger stabbed into her neck, Fairy Yunruo cast a spell to force Jiang Hao back. Jiang Hao's decisiveness shocked her. It shocked Jiang Hao himself as well. She had observed him for many days now and knew Jiang Hao's nature. He was always kind and calm. He was a naive and ignorant newbie who would die sooner or later in the Heavenly Note Sect. She had not expected him to act this way. Senior Sister Yunruo seemed astonished. Jiang Hao didn't say anything. Instead, he took out his spirit sword and stabbed her, hoping this would be the last time. Her strength had reduced drastically but she was still alive. Jiang Hao's sword rose and fell on her. She raised her own to deflect him. Light sword and shadow sword clashed, and sparks shot out in every direction. Yunruo was heavily injured and couldn't match up to him. She was sent flying backwards into the courtyard. She fell to the ground and clutched at her wounded neck in horror as she watched Jiang Hao approach. Junior brother, she said raggedly. You can't kill me. The master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion thinks highly of me. He covets me. If you kill me, he will hold a grudge against you. Jiang Hao ignored her words and raised his sword again. I am still a disciple of the Sunset Sect. The senior brother there is infatuated with me. If you kill me, they won't let you go. You will be skinned and your bones. The sword fell one last time and everything went quiet. He stabbed her once more to make sure she was really dead. Jiang Hao felt distressed looking at her dead body. He wasn't used to killing people so ruthlessly. But he was in the devil sect, he will have to get used to it sooner or later. The cultivation world was brutal. It didn't wait for you to get accustomed to things. He stared at her dead form for a long while. He finally left the place to look for the cliff master of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He was the one Jiang Hao had acknowledged as his master when he had entered the sect. Because Jiang Hao was still new and wasn't familiar with things, he was only allowed to listen to his master's lectures when he held it with other disciples. Jiang Hao mostly relied on himself for his cultivation. He debated against not reporting the incident. But he realized that the more he hid it, the more he would be susceptible to suspicion from others. It would be worse if they assumed he was an accomplice just because he had hidden the incident. The consequences would be unthinkable. Jiang found the master and brought him to the courtyard of his house. You killed her? A middle-aged man lowered his head and asked softly as he looked at dead fairy Yunruo. His expression was melancholy, and his eyes were cold. It seemed the master had seen many things in his lifetime, and nothing surprised him any more. He was the cliff master, Ku Wu Chang, of the Cliff of Broken Hearts, after all. She was my fellow disciple. Jiang Hao lowered his head. Tell me what happened, said Master Ku Wu Chang looking at Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao blurted out everything that had come to pass. I just wanted to injure her so she couldn't attack me. But I didn't expect her to go all out. So, I, too, attacked her. When did you build your foundation? Asked Master Ku Wu Chang. Last month, Jiang Hao answered nervously. So, you chose to launch a sneak attack? Yes. You don't have to worry about this matter. If there are any problems in the future, the people from the law enforcement hall will probably look for you. Remember to cooperate with them. Master Ku Wu Chang then took senior sister Yun Rio's body away. Jiang Hao sighed with relief as he watched him leave with the body. I wonder how the Heavenly Joy Pavilion will react. As for the Sunset Sect, I can avoid them as long as I don't go out, Jiang Hao convinced himself. I don't care if it takes 10 or 100 years for them to forget about senior sister Yunruo. Even if they don't, I will get stronger by then. Chapter 7. It had been 7 days since he killed senior sister Yunruo. He had spent it anxiously, but no one had come looking for him. The only thing he gained from the whole incident was that the effect of the daily appraisal ability was much stronger than he had expected. He had begun to secretly appraise people. He did not find anyone of consequence so far. So, he stopped appraising them to avoid wasting his appraisal ability. It was interesting to find out that he could appraise himself. When he did appraise himself, the result was such that the heaven extinction goo poison yang goo in the body will be forced to enter the sage state except with the woman who had the yin goo. Jiang Hao sighed. The pill that woman had force-fed him was the goo poison. The recent changes in his body were also because of it. He wasn't sure whether that was a blessing or a curse. Senior sister Yunruo had used enchantments on him, and it hadn't worked. He knew it had something to do with the goo poison. He shuddered to think what would have happened otherwise. There were many people in the devil sect who knew enchantments. Maybe this was a good thing. Being a male, beauty was a weakness. Jiang Hao didn't want to fall prey to that weakness. He would obviously be killed. He brushed off his thoughts and went to the spirit garden to keep himself busy. Every time he went there, he found something to make him stronger. But someone blocked his way at the door. There were 3 young men, each stronger than him. They looked very solemn. Their bodies emitted a faint, murderous aura. Jiang Hao didn't want to take any chances. He activated his daily appraisal. The man in the lead was dressed all in black. His eyebrows were as sharp as a sword and his face looked like it was sculpted out of marble. He could be considered handsome by some. Lu Xingchen, a true disciple of the heavenly faction. Born with the aura of a dragon and in the late stage of the Golden Core realm. He is bored and wants to spy on the Heavenly Sect's law enforcement hall. He is looking for you to calm the Heavenly Joy Pavilion's anger. Jiang Hao's heart was pounding. Isn't the Heavenly faction known as the most powerful immortal sect? Why would such a person come to the Heavenly Sect to spy, thought Jiang Hao anxiously. He bowed his head respectfully to greet them. We are from the law enforcement hall. We are here about the incident that occurred 7 days ago. We have a few questions to ask you, said Lu Xingchen, indifferently. Of course, senior brother. Jiang Hao was terrified but he maintained his composure. The words Heavenly Joy Pavilion's anger made him worried. You killed junior sister Yunruo? Lu Xingchen asked. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. Why did you kill her? Asked Lu Xingchen. She betrayed the sect and tried to force me to betray them, too. I did not intend to kill her but in the end, I accidentally did. Said Jiang Hao. She was a member of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. It's not up to the Cliff of Broken Hearts to take care of her, said Lu Xingchen coldly. You violated the sect's rules by killing a disciple of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, Lu Xingchen continued. However, in consideration of the reason you mentioned, you will only be deprived of 5 years of cultivation resources. Within 3 months, you are expected to pay 1,000 spirit stones to the Heavenly Joy Pavilion as compensation. In addition, since Yunruo is a traitor to the sect and you were the last person she met, you aren't allowed to leave the sect for now. You need to cooperate with our investigations. If you do leave, it will be treated as a judgment, and you will be found guilty. We will inform you when the investigation is over. Jiang Hao was frozen on the spot. He, of course, had no qualms in cooperating with their investigation but paying with 1,000 spirit stones. As an inner disciple, I only get 10 spirit stones per month. Where will I get 1,000 of them, thought Jiang Hao in disbelief. Heavenly Joy Pavilion was worthy of being a devil sect in their ruthlessness, indeed. Seeing Jiang Hao silent, Lu Xingchen said, Do you have any questions? Jiang Hao was brought back to reality. He lowered his head. No. The 3 men from the law enforcement hall uttered a goodbye and left. Jiang Hao sighed. Is the Cliff of Broken Hearts too weak or am I too unimportant for them, lamented Jiang Hao. This is just plain bullying 1,000 spirit stones in 3 months. What will happen to me if I am unable to collect them? Will they kill me? Having reached the foundation establishment stage at just 19 years of age is very rare. Maybe the Cliff of Broken Hearts will protect me, wished Jiang Hao. With a heavy heart, Jiang Hao walked to the spirit herb garden. Not only did he need to increase his cultivation some other way but also needed to find a way to earn 1,000 spirit stones in 3 months. He felt that the beautiful woman who had poisoned him was a disaster. Maybe if the poison hadn't actually saved him from enchantments, he would be dead by now and didn't have to worry about paying 1,000 spirit stones. It was not advisable for him to provoke a fight with the 3 men. The one who had questioned him was at the late stage of the Golden Core realm. There was no way he could even think about beating him. Jiang Hao was only at the earliest stage of the foundation establishment stage. As for exposing them as a spy, that would really be courting death. That would be suicide. In the cultivation world, cultivation was divided into lifeblood refinement realm, foundation establishment stage, Golden Core realm, primordial spirit realm, spirit refinement realm, and return to void. At the highest point of the Heavenly Sect, on a pavilion in the center of the 100 Flowers Lake sat Yue Ying gazing at the flowers in a daze. A gentle wind blew, and a white figure landed behind Yue Ying. Iz bowed respectfully. Sect Master, she greeted. Yue Ying didn't turn around. She said softly, What's the matter? I've compiled a list of suspicious disciples and a list of traitors. It's ready for you to see. Beizi handed the list over to Hong Yue. There were detailed records of the people, including their origins, cultivation levels, and suspicious behaviors. They were either spies, traitors, or suspects. After a cursory glance, her eyes stopped at the very end, Jiang Hao. An inner sect disciple of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Early stage of the Foundation establishment stage. Chapter 8. Hong Yue's gaze lingered on Jiang Hao's name. She then closed the list. There aren't any outstanding people, she said. Most of them are outer sect disciples. There are only a few traitors and suspects among the inner sect disciples. Their status isn't high. The other successive disciples, the deacons and elders, need to investigate further. They still need some time, Beizi said hurriedly. Not a single person of importance had made it on the list of suspects. Beizi was relieved. However, if the sect master was sure that there was a spy, then possibly, there might be people of importance involved in this. It was just difficult to find out in such a short period of time. Some people are difficult to expose. They lurk below the shadows. Hong Yue's voice was calm. She looked at the list again. Her eyes were fixed on a name at the very end of the list. What is the background of Jiang Hao from the Cliff of Broken Hearts? His background is actually very clean. He was sold to the sect at a young age. His talent is above average. He is on the suspect list because he seemed to be connected to the traitor of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. His promotion was a little strange, too. A few years ago, he went out for a trip, and his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. He said that he ate a strange fruit and obtained a fortuitous encounter, continued Beizi. Some time ago, he broke through the Foundation establishment stage. Normally, this wouldn't raise any eyebrows, but a traitor died by his hands. There is a possibility that the Heavenly Joy Pavilion instigated this rebellion and provoked him. What about his usual behavior? Hong Yue asked indifferently. He has a gentle personality. He doesn't make enemies and never speaks ill of the ordinary people. He doesn't seem like a typical sect disciple. Beizi had wanted to say that he didn't really seem like a devil sect disciple, but corrected herself just in time in order not to offend the sect master. Hong Yue didn't say anything. There was no emotion in her eyes. Jiang Hao killed a member of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. She was using her charm, so it's likely that she tried to convince him to turn against the sect, said Beizi after a long pause. Although there is no evidence that he might be a traitor, it's still very suspicious. Then let's test him. We can also use him as bait for those traitors who are hiding in the dark, said Hong Yue. I don't understand what the sect master meant. Beizi lowered her head. She was confused. A few moments later, she saw a faint light. She looked up to see a seed land in front of her. It was half black and half white. After the light faded, it looked like an ordinary seed the size of a quail's egg. Beizi's eyes widened. This is... Hong Yue laughed. Many people coveted it. You take it and give it to that man who lives at the bottom of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Tell him to plant it carefully. It won't take long for the others hiding in the dark to come to the surface. But, said Beizi in shock. What if the man runs away with it? Isn't that your business to take care of? Asked Hong Yue as she turned to look at Beizi. Beizi flinched and didn't dare ask anything else. I'll do it right away. After Beizi left the 100 Flowers Lake, her fear was swept away, and she, once again, appeared noble and powerful. She walked in the mountain forest. No matter if it was a guardian or an elder, they had to bow their heads and respect her, not only because she was the present sect master but also because she was very powerful. However, at this moment, she was quite confused. She looked at the seed in her hand and became even more perplexed. The seed of the heavenly fragrance Deo flower. Is it worth using something this precious to test an inner sect disciple and lure out other traitors, thought Beizi. It was definitely not worth it. But Beizi knew better than to doubt the sect master. She must have some other plan in her mind. Is it because of this person's problem, or is it because there is someone strong among the traitors? Beizi sighed and pushed away her thoughts. The sect master came out of seclusion and was trying to find the traitors. Now, she had given her the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Something must have happened. It is said that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower is the reason why the sect master is so powerful. Beizi looked at the seed in her hand. It would be a lie to say she wasn't a little tempted. If she could have the seed for herself, she might soar to the sky. Beizi shivered and broke out in cold sweat. She realized now that the first person the sect master had intended to test was herself. She couldn't bear to look at the seed anymore and wanted to get rid of it from her hands as soon as possible. If she gave in to her temptations, she might be doomed. However, she did feel it was such a waste to give it to a mere inner sect disciple. Lifeblood +1. Spirit sword +1. Jiang Hao walked in the spirit herb garden. The surrounding bubbles flew to him one by one. He noticed that there were more blue bubbles than before. Today's harvest is pretty good, but it's a pity that I can't grow spirit stones. The thought of owing 1,000 spirit stones weighed on his mind. Although he had a lot of cheap spirit swords and pills, it couldn't fetch him so much even if he sold them all. If he could pick up some good elixirs, then he could sell them for a good price. Unfortunately, he hadn't come across any elixirs so far. Right now, I only have 168 spirit stones. If I sell some spirit swords and elixirs, I can barely make up to 200. I'm still short of 800 spirit stones, thought Jiang Hao in dismay. Maybe I can take up some sect missions. At noon, after he was done tending to the spirit herbs, Jiang Hao headed to the law enforcement hall. The hall issued all kinds of missions. Yo, junior brother Jiang, it's been a long time since I've seen you here. It's rare to see you coming out of the spirit herb garden that you love so dearly. A man laughed behind him. He turned around to face a handsome man. Another man and a woman stood by his side. They weren't very old, but their cultivation wasn't bad. Chapter 9. Senior brother Qi, said Jiang Hao, greeting him politely. Qi Yang was an inner sect disciple of Thunder Fire Peak. He was currently in the early phase of foundation establishment stage. They had been friends since their time as outer sect disciples. They got along well. But their bloodline was different, so they rarely saw each other anymore. You've reached the foundation establishment stage? So fast. Qi Yang suddenly exclaimed as he approached Jiang Hao. The two people by his side were also surprised. 19 was very young to have reached that stage. I was just lucky to reach the foundation establishment stage, Jiang Hao said with a smile. This was the trouble with not being able to conceal his cultivation level. Anybody could see it. He had to find a way to conceal his cultivation level. But he had to first think of a way to earn 1,000 spirit stones first. No matter how depressing it was, he had to fulfill the amount of compensation he owed to the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Otherwise, they might just kill him. It seemed the Cliff of Broken Hearts was unable or unwilling to protect him. He couldn't understand why the Heavenly Joy Pavilion wanted to go to this extent for the sake of an inner sect traitor. Was Senior Sister Yunruo telling the truth when she said that the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion thought highly of her? That he coveted her? Jiang Hao didn't think much of it. He didn't find Senior Sister Yunruo that beautiful anyway when compared to the woman who had poisoned him. Senior brother and senior sister, let me introduce to you. This is my junior brother, Jiang Hao, who was under the same roof when I was still in the outer sect, said Qi Yang to the two people standing by him. It's rare to meet two outstanding disciples in the same place. The man next to him smiled. My name is Su Feng, and the person next to me is my junior sister, Liang Yu. Senior brother Su, senior sister Liang. It is very nice to meet you. Jiang Hao bowed his head in greeting. By the way, which branch is junior brother from? Liang Yu asked with a smile. Both wanted to befriend Jiang Hao. Such a young cultivator already in the foundation establishment stage was no less than a genius. The Cliff of Broken Hearts, said Jiang Hao. Su Feng and Liang Yu both looked surprised. The Cliff of Broken Hearts. Junior brother, by any chance, do you know who killed Yunruo of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion? Asked Su Feng. The question made Jiang Hao uncomfortable. However, there was no use lying. I did, he said. Now, not only Su Feng and Liang Yu but also Qi Yang looked shocked. Su Feng and Liang Yu even deliberately put a few steps of distance between him and themselves. After chatting awkwardly for a while, the three of them left. Jiang Hao didn't say anything. By their reactions, it seemed Heavenly Joy Pavilion wasn't something to trifle with. He had never put an effort to build relationships with others in the Devil Sect, but he had eliminated a traitor that was going to betray the sect, so why was everyone avoiding him? In a corner, Su Feng looked at Qi Yang. You are familiar with junior brother Jiang, it seems. How talented is he? He is above average, said Qi Yang after a thought. Above average? Liang Yu looked surprised. How old is he? 19, I think. 2 years older than me, answered Qi Yang. Above average aptitude, 19 years old. How did he reach the foundation establishment stage? Su Feng asked curiously. Because he had a fortuitous encounter and his cultivation level soared. I think the foundation establishment stage should also be related to that fortuitous encounter, said Qi Yang doubtfully. Senior brothers and sisters, do you feel that something is wrong? Su Feng and Liang Yu had concocted a plan. When they looked at Jiang Hao, their eyes showed contempt. Junior brother, it's better not to get too close to him in the future. Su Feng looked in the direction of Jiang Hao. I was curious why the Cliff of Broken Hearts didn't try their best to protect him. Now I know. If he advanced through a fortuitous encounter, it means his path in the future is not easy. In other words, he has no value. After offending the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, there is definitely a disaster waiting for Jiang Hao in the future. So, don't get too close with him. It will make things difficult for the master. Su Feng had wanted to befriend Jiang Hao. Even now, he was in a dilemma. Such a young person in the foundation establishment stage was a genius. Geniuses were always promising and very useful. But since he had offended the Heavenly Joy Pavilion and advanced only because of a fortuitous encounter, Su Feng no longer wanted to be his friend. In fact, he was even slightly envious. He wasn't even at the foundation establishment stage. Qi Yang looked in the direction of Jiang Hao and remained quiet. Jiang Hao realized that the only missions who paid highly required him to either go outside of the sect or fulfill unrealistic demands. He could only do so much with his current limitations to his strength and other skills. He did discover that alchemy, forging, and talisman making were the most profitable among them. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to do any of those things. How about learning one for the time being, thought Jiang Hao. He knew he had no chance with alchemy and forging. Not only were they difficult to set up, but also required pill formulas and forging techniques which needed spirit stones to buy. Otherwise, with his knowledge about spirit herbs, he could have done it. Talisman making, maybe I can buy some materials and give it a try. Having made up his mind, Jiang Hao decided to take on a simple mission to earn some spirit stones. Although it did seem far-fetched for him to be able to make talisman making into a lucrative side business, he couldn't afford to waste his time doing nothing. As for the method, he could figure it out as he did it. He shouldn't aim too high when starting out. In the end, he accepted a mission of tending to the pure yang flower. 7 days, 20 spirit stones. The pay wasn't that bad, but the requirements were challenging. Fortunately, Jiang Hao had spent several years in the spirit herb garden, so he met the requirements adequately. This task was from the White Moon Lake. There were many geniuses there, and it was under the jurisdiction of the guardian elder. He had never seen this elder before. But that was not so unusual. The high-ranking masters and officials like the guardian elder, peak master, sect master, etc. were rarely seen. I'll buy some talisman-making materials and instruction manuals first, then I'll go over to take a look, decided Jiang Hao. It's said that the pure yang flower is a holy medicine. I wonder if there's a purple bubble in it. If only the bubbles could produce spirit stones, all his problems would be solved. Chapter 10. White Moon Lake was located at a higher altitude in the Heavenly Sound Sect. The spiritual essence was dense. In this place, cultivation speed was faster than any other main bloodlines. It was no wonder that this place produced so many geniuses. But it was equally difficult to get accepted as a disciple in this place. The Cliff of Broken Hearts was different from this place. It was situated lower in status as well as location. Although the Cliff of Broken Hearts had many promising disciples, they weren't really famous or remarkable. Phew, I am finally here. Jiang Hao had bought some talisman-making tools before arriving. If not for the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, he would have never gotten the chance to come here. Before the Heavenly Joy Pavilion got angry at him, he had felt that the Cliff of Broken Hearts was not bad, either. But now, shaking his head, he approached the guard. He explained the purpose of his visit. Looking after the pure yang flower. The fairy guard looked at Jiang Hao carefully. Are you sure you have experience in this field? Yes, of course. I am Jiang Hao, an inner sect disciple of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. I have been working in the spirit herb garden of the Cliff of Broken Hearts for a few years now, Jiang Hao said truthfully. Then follow me. The fairy guard led the way. Let me remind you. The pure yang flower is about to bloom, so you need to take care of it very carefully. This is not an easy job. If you don't do it well, you will be punished. The fairy guard kindly reminded him. Thank you for your reminder, senior sister. I understand. Jiang Hao thanked her. This senior sister's eyes were clear. She looked honest. Not at all like senior sister Yunruo. She didn't try to befriend him, but she wasn't cold and rude to him either. She just did her job. Sure enough, not everyone in the devil sect was evil. But Jiang Hao could not really take that as an indication of her true personality for obvious reasons. My name is Zhou Chan, said the fairy guard. Since you have accepted the mission, you will need to come up here again after a few days. When you do, just ask for me. I will escort you. She led Jiang Hao to a courtyard. Under the guidance of senior sister Zhou, Jiang Hao got to know the person who took care of the courtyard. Elder Qian Su, a middle-aged beautiful woman in a green dress which flowed to the ground with a light blue belt around her waist and donning a muslin jacket, took care of the garden. She looked cold and disdainful. She was also the executive elder of the White Moon Lake. She looks like I owe her something and she is angry about it, thought Jiang Hao but didn't dare to say it aloud. As he looked around, he saw a white spirit herb that occupied a large portion of the land. The area around this herb was covered in frost. At the edge of the white frost was a scarlet-red gourd with a scorching aura coming from it. The gourd is filled with lava. What you need to do is to water the lava at the edge of the white frost every hour afternoon, 6 times a day, Elder Qian Su explained. It's late today so you can start tomorrow. Of course. Understood, said Jiang Hao respectfully. After returning to his residence, he looked at his interface. Age, 19. Ability, 9 revolutions. Death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, can be learned. Lifeblood, 16/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 20/100, can be cultivated. Ability, 2/3, cannot be obtained. Although it's only by a little, I am happy that it is increasing very quickly, thought Jiang Hao. Maybe it won't take long for me to advance to the middle phase of foundation establishment stage, after all. But where will I find 1000 spirit stones? I am going to try making those talismans. The minimum requirement for making talismans was the lowest, and it was also the cheapest. Unless he intended to make intermediate or high-grade talismans. He had to try, otherwise coming up with 1000 spirit stones was impossible. The fastest way to get spirit stones was to refine pills. But the requirements were high, investment was even larger, and it took such a long time. Jiang Hao took out the newly purchased materials and manuals and read through it in his room. There were a total of 12 types of talismans recorded on them. The simplest one was the Divine Walk Talisman, which could speed up the pace of someone's walk. There were also the Heart Cleansing Talisman and the Fire Talisman. These 3 types of talismans were all needed for lifeblood refinement. A foundation establishment cultivator could ride a flying sword, strengthen his mind, and use spells with ease. Therefore, under normal circumstances, these talismans with low effects were not needed. However, these 3 types of talismans were also the most suitable for practice. As for the selling price, if 3 talismans sold even for 1 spirit stone, that would be a miracle. It would probably take a whole lot of them to reach his goal. Relying on these simple talismans wouldn't fetch him enough. He had to think big. He read the part about the Divine Traversing Talisman. Jiang Hao sat cross-legged on the side and calmed his mind. After a long while, his condition reached its peak. Then, he picked up the talisman pen, dipped it in cinnabar, and started to make the talisman. Each stroke was evenly and powerfully done, flowing like the clouds and the water. The spiritual essence gradually got imbued on the talisman paper. When the last stroke slowly fell, the talisman flickered and returned to normal. Is it done? Thought Jiang Hao, astonished. Is it really this easy to make a talisman? Jiang Hao spent the entire night practicing the Divine Traversing Talisman, the Heart Cleansing Talisman, and the Fire Talisman. He did not stop until all the materials were used up. A total of 31 talismans. After subtracting the cost of 2 spirit stones it took for the materials, he would profit by 3 spirit stones. Jiang Hao did some calculations. 3 spirit stones a day would mean 90 in a month and 270 spirit stones in 3 months. If I double the number of talismans, that will maybe fetch me 540 spirit stones in 3 months, assuming they even sold. Jiang Hao sighed. If he made more talismans and took on more missions, he might be able to reach the goal of 1000 spirit stones in 3 months. As long as the Heavenly Joy Pavilion did not come up with something else, he might be able to submit 1000 spirit stones within his time limit, but he had gotten the price of the talisman right, but there was no market for them. He had been too naive. After putting them on display for a long time, he earned 1 spirit stone. That wasn't even enough to cover for the spirit stones he had spent in buying the materials. Jiang Hao could do nothing but sigh. He bought some more materials to try to practice the talismans needed for the foundation establishment stage. After that, he went up to the White Moon Lake. Today was the day he would begin to tend to the pure yang flower. Chapter 11. When he arrived at White Moon Lake, Senior Sister Zhou led the way to the garden. Jiang Hao spent half of the day pouring lava at the designated time. He had expected to see some changes, but he realized soon enough that it was just like pouring water and the changes would be painstakingly slow. The lava just sunk to the soil and alleviated the surrounding frost. But the soil in this place wasn't ordinary either. It absorbed the lava. Jiang Hao repeated the same thing day after day. He made talismans at nights and went to the spirit herb garden in the morning. He then tried to sell the talismans in the market and headed up to the White Moon Lake to tend to the pure yang flower at noon. This had become his routine. One good thing that came out of it was that he found blue bubbles every day after he had started tending to the pure yang flower. Cultivation +1. Lifeblood +1. And he found mostly white and green bubbles at the spirit herb garden. Strength +1. Spirit +1. Lifeblood strengthening pill +1. He gained a lot more than before. His lifeblood and cultivation were increasing steadily. If he continued tending to the pure yang flower, he might advance to the middle phase of the foundation establishment in less than a month. But he seriously needed to find a way to hide his cultivation. During the period he took care of the pure yang flower, he frequently appraised it to make sure that nothing was wrong with it. The answer was usually the same. Pure yang flower, healing holy medicine, the main ingredient of the Ming Yang pill. It is about to mature and is in good condition. Occasionally, there would be a somewhat different answer. Pure yang flower, healing holy medicine, the main ingredient of the Ming Yang pill. It is about to mature and is not in a good condition. It is too cold and needs to be watered with lava. Usually, when he got the second appraisal answer, he poured a little extra lava. He hoped it would be enough. After that, he regretted doing it because if something went wrong, it would be his fault. Fortunately, nothing went wrong. But making talismans wasn't going that smoothly. Basic talismans were useless, so he began to make more complicated ones which would help the foundation establishment cultivators, like the spirit concentration talisman, but it took him almost 2 days to finish just one talisman. The effect would be average, and they were worth 5 spirit stones. However, it was not enough. Besides the spirit concentration talisman, there was also the fire talisman. Its power couldn't be compared to foundation establishment, but it was still not that bad. Each talisman cost 3 spirit stones. Unfortunately, it was as difficult and time-consuming to make as the spirit concentration talisman. The third type of talisman was the divine sword talisman. It sounded powerful, but in fact, it did nothing more than to make your sword fly faster if you were throwing it. It was also 5 spirit stones per talisman. It was difficult to make. Fortunately, there was still a lot of time. As long as the success rate could be increased, it would be a sure win for him. But he had no time to cultivate. Everything depended on cultivation. If he cultivated for only a short period of time every day, then the effect of it would not be so great. Besides, more cultivation meant more talent. So only those with good cultivation and good talent could refine pills and make talismans. For someone with insufficient cultivation, it wasn't safe to refine pills. Junior brother Jiang, you are so punctual. You arrive at the same time every day. Zhou Chan smiled at him. Ha ha. I dare not neglect my duties, said Jiang Hao, smiling back. After his frequent visits, senior sister Zhou had begun to befriend him. Be careful. Elder Qiansu is in a very bad mood. Tomorrow is the last day. Don't let anything go wrong, Zhou Chan kindly reminded him as she led him to the garden. Jiang Hao nodded. Thank you for the warning, senior sister. The reminder might not mean much to her, but it was indispensable to Jiang Hao. Knowing how the elder was feeling gave him an idea on how best to approach her. After informing Elder Qiansu about his arrival, he walked to the courtyard where the pure yang flower was. When he reached, he was stunned. Every day it had given him blue bubbles, but today there were none. Instead, a single purple bubble floated at the edge of the pure yang flower. It's actually purple. That's strange, he thought. Jiang Hao had tended to the spirit herb garden for so long. He had never seen a purple flower appear midway. It was either at the beginning or the end of maturity that the purple bubble usually surfaced. At the beginning or the end. Jiang Hao hurriedly activated his daily appraisal divine ability. Pure yang flower, healing holy medicine, the main ingredient of the Ming Yang pill, has matured. The pure yang flower was different from other spirit herbs. When it was fully matured, it needed to be plucked. Otherwise, it would wither fast and then regrow. It would take longer for it to mature again. He did not understand why it had matured so fast, but he did not dare delay. He took the purple bubble which fused into his body. Divine ability fragment +1. He hurried off to get Elder Jiansu. Along the way he checked his interface. After taking the purple bubble, he quickly went to see Elder Jiansu. Divine ability, 3/3, available. Finally, another divine ability, he was ecstatic. Restraining himself from checking the ability at once, he ran to the courtyard. Junior Jiang Hao, he announced his name. I have something to report. Creak. The door opened and a displeased Elder Jiansu appeared. What is it? She asked. She was really in a bad mood. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. If the matter wasn't important, he would never have crossed Elder Jiansu when her mood was this grumpy. He bowed his head. Today, when I reached to tend to the pure yang flower, I noticed that something was strange. It seemed to have matured. Before he could even finish his words, Elder Jiansu disappeared from the door and made her way to the pure yang flower. Jiang Hao followed. Elder Jiansu plucked the pure yang flower. Jiang Hao sighed in relief. He was so glad that the mission had ended without anything going wrong. The harvest was obviously greater than expected, seeing how Elder Jiansu looked very pleased. 20 spirit stones were a decent among, but the real deal had been the divine ability fragment. This mission had indeed been profitable for him. You do have some ability. Elder Jiansu put away the pure yang flower and looked at Jiang Hao. It was nothing. I still rely on Elder Jiansu's guidance, said Jiang Hao humbly. There's no doubt about your ability. Let's go. I'll take you to meet the owner of this flower. Remember to be smart and respectful. You might be able to gain something from this, said Elder Jiansu. Am I going to meet the guardian elder? Wondered Jiang Hao. He had never seen one before and that made him very nervous. Chapter 12. Jiang Hao followed behind Elder Jiansu to the White Moon Lake. He glanced at the calm surface of the lake and discovered that the spiritual energy here was very dense. If he cultivated here, he would definitely be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. The Cliff of Broken Hearts was very different from here. After a short while, they arrived at a pavilion by the lake. It gave him a strange, unreal feeling as though this place wasn't tangible. It felt like a fairyland on earth. Come in, said a voice from the inside. It sounded gentle but dignified. When they did as they were told, Jiang Hao saw a beautiful woman in white, her hair tied up in a simple but elegant bun. She sat at the pavilion looking regal and powerful. Her powerful aura shocked Jiang Hao. Elder Jiansu cleared her throat. Jiang Hao was brought back to the present. He hurriedly bowed his head in respect. Junior Jiang Hao pays his respects to you, Elder, he said reverently. Elder Jiansu took the pure yang flower and handed it to the beautiful woman. She explained the whole situation to her. Is that so? Asked Beizi, smiling at Jiang Hao. It seems that you are quite capable. Coincidentally, I have another matter that I need you to do. If you do it well, there will naturally be rewards. Empty promises, thought Jiang Hao. If it's not done well, you should already know what you will face, Beizi said with a smile. Of course, Elder. Jiang Hao nodded. He felt helpless. He had done 2 meritorious deeds and yet he was threatened for it. The devil sect was always so unreasonable. Jiang Hao walked out of the pavilion with a seed in his hand. Senior Sister Zhou Chan escorted him out of the White Moon Lake. The identity of the elder he had just met eluded him. He asked Senior Sister Zhou Chan who the elder was. She explained to him that she was one of the 4 great guardian elders, Elder Beizi, the acting sect master of the Heavenly Note sect and the Devil sect. She had absolute power over life and death. Jiang Hao stared at her in disbelief. So, the elder who was the acting sect master had just met him? When did he have such luck? But Jiang Hao was happy with the mission he had completed. Elder Jiansu had given him 40 spirit stones instead of 20. However, he found it confusing that someone as great as the acting sect master had handed him a seed. She had asked him to plant it and tend to it. She hadn't even mentioned anything to take note of or what kind of results she expected. He was given no rules and no guidelines. That was unusual. There should obviously be so many people who are more capable and powerful than me, thought Jiang Hao. So, why did the sect master choose me to plant this particular seed? There must be some other reason. Jiang Hao was filled with doubts. He wanted to appraise the seed to find out what it actually was. But his daily appraisal ability could be used only once a day. He would have to wait until tomorrow. He also realized that his heart had been as calm as still water even when he saw the beautiful elder Beizi. That worried him. He wasn't happy that the poison pill was still affecting his body. As for the one who had poisoned him, it was better if he didn't have to see her ever. It was dangerous. In the afternoon, Jiang Hao returned to his house. After meditating for a while, he opened the interface. Cultivation, early foundation establishment stage. Supernatural ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal. Lifeblood, 27/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 32/100, can be cultivated. Divine ability, 3/3, can be obtained. His lifeblood and cultivation had both increased by quite a bit, and he was now closer to reaching a 100. The most important thing was the last line. When the divine ability bar was full, he could obtain it. After observing his surroundings and making sure it was safe, Jiang Hao chose to obtain it. In the blink of an eye, the divine ability went from 3 to 0. A ray of light appeared in his body. Something was forming within. There was no pain. Instead, there was a feeling of comfort, peace, and tranquility. Jiang Hao knew that this was the effect of divine ability. When he had obtained daily appraisal ability, it had felt different than this. A moment later, the light disappeared, and the feeling of comfort faded away. When he observed his interface, he found that another ability had been added. Divine ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, clear and pure heart. Clear and pure heart. Jiang Hao could sense the existence of the divine ability within him, but he didn't know how it functioned, yet. Let's give it a try, he said to himself. He activated his new divine ability. Immediately, it felt like a bucket of ice water was running through his body. His entire body felt so cold he thought he might freeze to death. The coldness went to the depths of his mind. A certain clarity speared in his consciousness as if the filth in his mind had been completely removed. His mind felt transcendent. Jiang Hao was surprised, but the clarity also gave him comfort. When he looked around, everything was clear. He could observe minute details on things as though he was looking at them from a fresh perspective. He took out the talisman manual. When he read through it, he came upon a new understanding. He stood in front of his table. He picked up the talisman pen, dipped it in cinnabar and started to create talismans. This process surprised Jiang Hao, and even made him feel extremely comfortable. The pen flowed like clouds and fresh spring water. He felt as if he could do anything he wanted to. Every stroke he drew seemed as though it came from the will of God. Jiang Hao completed the last stroke. After a flash of light, he regained his calm. The talisman was complete. This divine ability came just in time. Jiang Hao put down the talisman pen and grinned. He stayed up to make talismans again. This time he made 2 spirit concentration talismans, 2 divine sword talismans, and 1 fire talisman. Excluding the cost, he could still earn more than 10 spirit stones. This was only the beginning, and the success rate would only get higher and higher. If things went well, he might be able to gather 1,000 spirit stones in less than 2 months. It's good, but it is a little tiring. Jiang Hao sat on his balcony watching the rising sun. He took out the seed from his pocket. He could use his daily appraisal today. Chapter 13. Oh my God! Elder Beizi gave me a bomb, exclaimed Jiang Hao. He looked at the seed in his hand in shock. Cold sweat dripped down his back. He had appraised the seed and the result was the seed of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. At the beginning of the primordial era, there was a flower that was born in heaven and earth. Heaven and earth have been distinct for countless years. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower bears fruit and then leaves a seed. This is one of those seeds. Bury it in the ground and water it once a day. 1 bowl of water. It can take root and sprout after 7 days. Jiang Hao remembered the name of this flower. He had seen it once before. He had seen it in the appraisal result of senior sister Yunruo. It was the reason why she had come to the Heavenly Note sect as a traitor. Which meant that if there are other spies and traitors, they would be looking for this seed. Now that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower is in my hands, is everyone already targeting me, thought Jiang Hao nervously. If it sprouts within 7 days, I must be always vigilant of my surroundings. What if I just don't plant it? Could I withstand Elder Beizi's anger? Jiang Hao felt like a fish out of water. He heaved a weary sigh. He felt helpless. He had only sought to get stronger and raise money to pay his compensation and be out of any danger, but this. The devil sect is really not a place where peaceful people can stay, he thought, shaking his head. He walked out to his small garden and found a place to plant the seed. He looked at his makeshift wooden fence and wished he could build a fence of stones so no one would be able to see the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. He planted the seed, filled a bowl and watered it. I need to tread carefully. If I really can't do it, I must find a chance to escape. Jiang Hao left his house and headed to the spirit herb garden. He collected the bubbles which had spawned. There were 2 blue air bubbles. As time passed, Jiang Hao felt that his strength had increased. If he planted, tended, and harvested in the same manner every day, he wondered how much his strength and spirit would increase. Right now, he was better than those who were at the same rank. At noon, Jiang Hao went to the market and put up his stall. This time he was lucky. All 5 of his talismans were sold. He earned a total of 21 spirit stones. The profit was 11 spirit stones. It was the same person from before who bought the talisman, so he had given some discount. How many fire talismans do you have left? Asked the person who had bought all his talismans. She was a senior sister in the middle phase of the foundation establishment stage. She looked very fierce. How many do you want, senior sister? Jiang Hao asked. 50 talismans, within 3 days, Leng Tian said. Jiang Hao shook his head regretfully. I am sorry, I don't think I can make that many. Even if he went at it the whole night, he would only be able to make 10 at most. Making talismans consumed spiritual energy, especially if used along with the divine ability that he had obtained. Then within 3 days, I will take as many as you can make, said senior sister Leng Tian, as she gave him 10 spirit stones. I'll try my best. Jiang Hao nodded. Although other talismans were more profitable, being able to sell any one of the talismans made a huge difference. He was curious, but he couldn't possibly ask why she needed so many fire talisman in such short notice. Jiang Hao began to make talismans one after the other the next day. He did not have any afternoon missions, so he used all his time in making as many talismans as he could. His success rate wasn't very good. On the first day, he tried 15 times a day and only succeeded 8 times. On the second day, he succeeded 9 times, 10 times on the third day. He could only make a total of 27 fire talismans by the third day. He obtained 81 spirit stones. It had cost him 45 spirit stones, so he made a profit of 36 spirit stones. He now had almost 250 spirit stones in total. In less than 2 weeks, he had earned nearly 100 spirit stones. He had never dared to think it was possible before. 4 days passed and he sold his talismans. He could rarely sell them all in a day, but the profit he made was almost around 10 spirit stones a day. His savings had reached around 300 spirit stones, and it had only been half a month. If nothing unexpected happened and he continued to do what he did, he could reach a total of 1,000 spirit stones without any problem. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. In the courtyard, Jiang Hao had made a makeshift fence that obscured the seed he had planted from unwelcome sight. At night, he continued to make talismans. He was about to finish one last stroke when a strange phenomenon occurred. An invisible spiritual energy swept across from the courtyard and into his room and burned the talismans on spot. It was so surprising, especially since the source of the energy was in the courtyard. It's been 7 days. Has the heavenly fragrance Dao flower sprouted? He wondered. Jiang Hao had always checked it, but he never thought something strange as this might happen. He went to the balcony and saw an invisible wave sweeping through the courtyard like the wind. Fortunately, the impact did not extend beyond the courtyard, or else it would have been fatal. He knew that traitors might already be targeting the flower. The wave did not last long. He saw a small bud emerge from the soil and gently sway in the wind. When the heavenly fragrance Dao flower in the next moment, the spiritual energy wave fluctuation disappeared, and a purple gold bubble appeared floating on top of it. Jiang Hao had never seen such a bubble before. Purple gold. What could it be, he wondered. Jiang Hao was a little excited. He jumped down from his balcony and approached the heavenly fragrance Dao flower just as the sky slightly brightened with the rising sunday. The purple gold bubble flew up and fused into his body. Purple Gold Legend +1. Chapter 14. Purple Gold Legend. Jiang Hao looked at the interface in surprise. This was the first time he had seen a bubble without a clear name. He looked at his surroundings, and then glanced at the tender shoots. Other than 2 small delicate leaves, he found nothing unusual. The sun had already risen, and his surroundings were quiet. After making sure no one had noticed him, he went to his room and opened his interface. Supernatural ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, clear and pure heart. Lifeblood, 34/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation, 39/100, can be cultivated. Supernatural ability, 0/3, cannot be obtained. Purple Gold Legend, 1/1, can be obtained. It is a little unusual that it can be obtained directly, thought Jiang Hao. He washed his hands. Purple gold was the highest grade color he had seen so far. He hoped it was a good item. Jiang Hao chose to obtain it. A purple gold light flashed, and Jiang Hao felt a mysterious article engrave itself in his mind. He saw the brightest 4 words in the article, Hongmeng Heart Sutra. Hongmeng Heart Sutra was one of the innate scriptures of the absolute beginning. Purple lifeblood enveloped heaven and earth, giving birth to all things. This was what Jiang Hao saw in the Heart Sutra. He pondered about it for a long time. He understood that this was a cultivation technique. The primordial chaos Heart Sutra, the absolute beginning technique. After cultivating it, it would give birth to the primordial purple lifeblood, concealing the inner breath. So, I have a powerful cultivation technique and a hidden technique, thought Jiang Hao in joy. He went back outside to look at the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Opportunities came with risks. However, as long as he was given time, this risk should be greatly reduced. It was close to noon. Jiang Hao left the courtyard and headed to the spirit herb garden as a part of his daily routine. He tried to finish his chore as soon as possible and return to his house. After making sure that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower was all right, he began to cultivate. He wanted to use the Hongmeng Heart Sutra. All his powers were covered with a wisp of purple lifeblood but still displayed through the heavenly sound 100 revolutions. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration for the Hongmeng Heart Sutra. In one night, Jiang Hao had successfully switched to the Hongmeng Heart Sutra. Even with the same cultivation level, he felt that his strength had drastically increased. If he were to deal with senior sister Yunruo again, he might be able to handle the situation with much more ease. The powerful strength made Jiang Hao happy. The effect of the purple mist made him eager to accumulate 100 cultivation levels and then continue to advance further. Jiang Hao went outside to the courtyard early in the morning. He found that there was a faint, refreshing fragrance in the courtyard which came from the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. What made him even more happy was that there were 2 blue bubbles on the edge of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Cultivation base +1. Jiang Hao was ecstatic. Without the pure yang flower to compensate anymore, the speed of his cultivation bases had slowed considerably. Now that he had the heavenly fragrance Dao flower to replenish from, he could quickly accumulate 100 cultivation bases. He hesitated. He wasn't sure how to nurture it from now on. He used his daily appraisal. The tender bud of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, at the beginning of the primordial era, there was a flower that was born in heaven and earth. Heaven and earth had been distinct for countless years. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower bears fruit and then leaves a seed. This is the tender bud that has taken root and broken through the soil. Water it once a day. 1 bowl of water. It will grow even faster. There are some changes in the appraisal result, but it still needs 1 bowl of water, thought Jiang Hao. He took a bowl and filled it and then watered the plant. He went inside his house. He needed to work hard to earn the 1,000 spirit stones from today. He was about to venture out again when he received an unexpected guest at his door. Law Enforcement Hall's Lu Xingchen. Why is he here again? Many things went through Jiang Hao's mind as he tried to figure out his guest's motive. If he had the chance, he would definitely take the heavenly fragrance Dao flower with him. Junior brother Jiang, there's something I need to tell you. Lu Xingchen looked at Jiang Hao expressionlessly. Senior brother, please do, Jiang Hao said politely. This person was an expert in the late stage of the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao knew he had no chance of winning against him. Can we talk inside? Asked Lu Xingchen, pointing at his courtyard. He walked briskly to the courtyard without waiting for Jiang Hao's approval, anyway. Jiang Hao hesitated, then followed. However, he was prepared to run, if need be. If Lu Xingchen had come for the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, he wouldn't be able to stop him. It seems that junior brother likes to plant some spirit herbs. Lu Xingchen looked around. Jiang Hao looked around the courtyard, but he didn't say anything. After a moment, Lu Xingchen looked at Jiang Hao. Junior brother, do you know why you have to pay 1,000 spirit stones? Because I have offended the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, said Jiang Hao cautiously. Why do you think the Heavenly Joy Pavilion values an inner sect disciple so much? Lu Xingchen asked again. What did he want, thought Jiang Hao. He didn't understand why he was being interrogated now. Because the seniors of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion thought highly of senior sister Yunruo, he said. Yes, but that's not all. Lu Xingchen looked around. After making sure that there was no one around, he said, because the cultivation technique that the pavilion master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion uses requires a person with a naturally charming body to act as a vessel for a certain period of time to help him break through the bottleneck. He has reached his bottleneck. And coincidentally, such a person came along. When we found out that Yunruo was a traitor, we went to inform the master. When she realized that we knew about her, she came to find you. We wanted to capture her alive but you killed her. How do you think the master of Heavenly Joy Pavilion felt about it? Chapter 15. Jiang Hao was quiet. So, senior sister Yunruo was actually telling the truth. If he had known earlier. He didn't know what he could have done anyway. If he had hesitated even a second, she would have killed him. Therefore, he had no regrets. You might not believe me if I tell you. Lu Xingchen paused. Asking you for 1,000 spirit stones is not because we are targeting you or anything like that. On the contrary, it is to help you. We did it to restrain that person from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion from attacking you. As long as you have compensated, he won't be able to do anything to you. But you should be careful. The Cliff of Broken Hearts might protect you, but you need to get stronger. As for not letting you leave, it is also to protect you from the people in Yunruo's sect. Some of them were infatuated with her. He is not weak. Rumor has it that he could have safely taken her back if not for her special role. Now that she is dead, you are already a target of the people from Sunset Sect. Your situation is worrisome. Jiang Hao was speechless. So, they weren't bullying him but looking out for him? Regardless of whether it was the truth or not, he couldn't really refuse. It was the devil sect, after all. It wasn't difficult for the pavilion master to target an inner sect disciple. Thank you for informing me, senior brother, Jiang Hao said gratefully. Then be careful, junior brother. If there's any news of the other traitors, you can inform me. Lu Xingchen waved at him and left. There was no one else in the courtyard. Jiang Hao glanced at the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. He understood that the senior brother had an ulterior motive. It was hard to believe he would pay a nice visit to Jiang Hao just to explain the situation out of the goodness of his heart. Did he not recognize me, or is he waiting for an opportunity? Jiang Hao was puzzled. He picked the air bubbles. He saw even more people than usual in the Cliff of Broken Hearts Spirit Herb Garden. There were some executive elders and other inner sect disciples whom he had never seen before in his life. Jiang Hao did not pay much attention to them and went about with his daily routine until a senior sister kept asking him about some spirit herbs. That was not a good sign. As expected, after a week, the same senior sister arrived at his place saying that she wanted a certain spirit herb and perhaps he would be able to help her. Junior brother doesn't have any guests, right? Otherwise, I'll go back. Fairy Mingyi poked her head into the courtyard. No. Senior sister thinks too highly of me. I don't really know much about spirit herbs, Jiang Hao was telling the truth. He had focused all his attention to making talismans that he had not had any time to increase his knowledge on spirit herbs. Fortunately, his progress in making talismans was great. His success rate had reached 90%. Now he could start making talismans which were stronger and difficult. Within a week, he had also earned 150 spirit stones. Now, he had 450 spirit stones. That was almost half of the compensation he owed. There were still 2 months left. This senior sister in front of him was from the misty cloud peak. She had been in seclusion for many years, and only just came out of it. So, she didn't know many people. That was why she had come over to ask. As if Jiang Hao didn't believe her at all. He activated his daily appraisal ability. In the blink of an eye, he received the result. Mingyi, Heavenly Saint Sect Substitute Saintess, Early Stage Golden Core Realm Cultivation, Undercover. Wants to find out the reason for the rise of the Heavenly Note Sect. According to the instructions, the thing in the courtyard. Taking an opportunity to pry a little. Ruthless personality. Hides a knife in her smile. When he saw her cultivation, Jiang Hao could only lower his head and go along with what she said. All these spies were Golden Core Realm cultivators. They were either true disciples or saintesses. There was one thing that surprised Jiang Hao. The reason for the rise of the Heavenly Note Sect was in his courtyard. Was it the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower? Wasn't this the thing that represented the sect master? Jiang Hao was puzzled. He wanted to look through the sect's ancient records. However, for him to plant such an important thing, it was obviously suspicious. His situation was indeed worrisome. Fairy Mingyi didn't stay for long. She passed the spirit herb to Jiang Hao to check. It was indeed a remarkable spirit herb, but Jiang Hao didn't recognize it. Fairy Mingyi didn't mind. She thanked him for his time and left. Jiang Hao continued with his usual routine. A month later, Jiang Hao counted his spirit stones with joy. 926. Soon, I will have 1,000. He had been making talismans for more than a year to earn spirit stones. He wanted to make more of the higher level talismans, but the success rate was low, so he only made them occasionally. He realized that he could continue making more talismans and save spirit stones for the future. Jiang Hao looked at his interface again. Cultivation method, Heavenly Sound 100 revolutions, Hongmeng Heart Sutra. Divine ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, clear and pure heart. Lifeblood, 100/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation method, 100/100, can be cultivated. The purple gold legend was gone, and his cultivation method had added Hongmeng Heart Sutra. The most remarkable thing was that his lifeblood and cultivation were full, all thanks to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. In addition, there were so many bubbles every time the spirit herbs were ripe now. He had waited for this day for a long time. With the Hongmeng purple mist shielding his cultivation, he was no longer worried about advancing too quickly. Without any hesitation, Jiang Hao began to extract his lifeblood and cultivation. Then, he began to circulate the Hongmeng Heart Sutra. Theoretically, he could break through to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage in one fell swoop. His lifeblood and spiritual energy surged. The purple cloud circulated within his body, and he began to absorb and refine his spiritual energy and lifeblood. The purple clouds began to expand and move to his energy center. Jiang Hao's cultivation was advancing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The bottleneck between the early and middle stages of the foundation establishment stage was crushed by the purple lifeblood, and he successfully entered the middle phase of the foundation establishment stage. It's done. Jiang Hao was delighted. The feeling of his new achievement comforted him. After calming himself, he looked outside and saw that it was getting late. He needed to water the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. But when he stepped outside in the courtyard, he saw that there was a woman standing there. She was dressed all in red and the sunlight made her look dazzling. She was extremely beautiful as always. It's her. Chapter 16. When he saw her, Jiang Hao's heart, which had remained so calm in the face of everything, pounded hard against his chest. He hadn't wanted to see this woman, but suddenly his heart and mind had returned to normal. It meant that she had the yin gu, the antidote to his gu poison. This woman was the one he had spent the night with. Her beauty surpassed all. 1 point is too long, 1 point is too short, 1 point is too white, and 1 point is too red. Her eyebrows are like green feathers, and her muscles are like white snow, her waist is like a ribbon, and her teeth are like shells. When he saw her so suddenly, that was all he could remember. It seems you don't remember me, said Yue Ying. She looked directly at Jiang Hao, who stood frozen at the door of his house. Her eyes were razor-sharp, and her expression was ice-cold. I don't dare forget, said Jiang Hao, bowing respectfully. Senior, your arrival is a great honor. I am just surprised. Middle stage of foundation establishment. It seems like your advancement is very smooth. Yue Ying casually revealed the secret he had tried so hard to hide. Jiang Hao panicked. He had been at the 9th level of lifeblood refinement realm when he had met her. In just 3 months from that time, he had reached the middle phase of the foundation establishment stage. If she investigated him, he was a goner. But how did she find out with the purple mist concealing it, wondered Jiang Hao. Are you very confused? Yue Ying scornfully. Your cultivation can be concealed, of course. But your body is honest. It doesn't hide anything. The speed of circulation of your power, the strength of your breathing and the extension of your spirit tells me everything. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that you have advanced to the middle phase of the foundation establishment stage recently. Your spirit is stronger than others, but there are still limitations. If you combine everything together, it's easy to know which stage you are in. Also, you advance right under my nose. Do you think I am blind? Jiang Hao was speechless. Hiding one's cultivation was harder than he thought. It seemed he was still lacking in knowledge. He needed to research more on it. He was more worried about the purpose of this visit since she had been standing near the heavenly fragrance Dao flower all this time. It worried him. Fortunately, she didn't have anything more to say to him. But she appeared interested in the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. That wasn't good. Senior, is there any reason for this visit? Jiang Hao asked cautiously. Yue looked at the heavenly fragrance Dao flower upon hearing his question. Did you plant this? How did you plant it? Asked Yue. I watered it with a bowl of water every day, answered Jiang Hao truthfully. Yue looked at him in disbelief. That's it? Yes, said Jiang Hao. Although it seemed unbelievable, he was actually telling the truth. Yue crouched down and touched the tender buds. The plant is quite fragrant. When it matures, I will take it with me. Do you have any objections? Senior, I can't. Before he could even complete his words, the woman raised her head and snorted. Not yet, anyway, he said fearfully. A powerful force swept across the courtyard and pushed him back. He almost lost his balance. I have no objections, he cried. He was terrified and surprised. Terrified because this woman was extremely strong, and surprised because the force had been so strong and yet it hadn't caused him much harm. He realized that the woman did not really mean to kill him. How strong is she? Wondered Jiang Hao in shock and admiration. Yue stopped her attack. She looked back at the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. This flower is mine now. Do not forget. Take care of it for me. Of course. When do you want to take it with you, senior? Asked Jiang Hao. When it blooms and bears fruit, Yue said calmly. Her voice, when it wasn't angry or cold, was actually pleasant to hear. It was like a light spring breeze. Unfortunately, she was a thief who had threatened him and would take the heavenly fragrance Dao flower away. For now, her answer made him relieved. It was unknown when the heavenly fragrance Dao flower would mature, so he had enough time to figure something out. He wouldn't have to worry about being punished for losing the flower for the time being. Elder Baizi's intention had been to fish out the traitors. Had Elder Baizi intended to use the flower as bait to fish out this woman out of other traitors, he wondered. Her beauty and power were incomparable. Perhaps the Heavenly Note Sect was looking for her. He did not dare say anything. He could only pretend to be okay with what she wanted. Yue stood up and went into the house. Jiang Hao could only stand by and wait for instructions. I won't let you work for nothing, she said, as a piece of paper magically appeared on the table. This is a formation map. There are no minimum requirements. Just follow the arrangements on it and it will help you block the dissipation of spiritual energy. With that flower and this, you can raise a lot of spiritual energy to benefit your cultivation. Jiang Hao was somewhat tempted. He had wanted to do this as soon as possible. It seemed he was attracting more trouble than it was worth. As for the other traders, he wondered why they didn't make a move. Jiang Hao suddenly remembered that he had an ability that could answer all his questions. If he appraised the person in front of him, he might be able to make sense of the situation. But he was scared. He didn't know who this woman was, but he knew how strong she was. He didn't want to be discovered. He hesitated for a while and then risked it. At least, he would have some answers. He activated his ability and received the result instantly. But he was stunned. Do you have any questions? Yue asked coldly. No, senior, said Jiang Hao quickly, hiding his surprise. Chapter 17. He hadn't been able to appraise her. And he was glad he wasn't discovered. He heaved a sigh of relief. But he was curious. How was it that his daily appraisal had failed? It had never failed before. Is it because her cultivation is too high? Or something else, he wondered. Maybe I can try again in the future. It seems to me that you really want to hide your cultivation, said Yue Ying. I just don't want to attract too much attention. The flower in the courtyard is not ordinary, and they can easily bring trouble. Jiang Hao didn't lie. His cultivation had advanced too quickly, especially because of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. His advancement progressed at a drastic speed. If he didn't conceal his cultivation, he would be a target for countless others. If those were of the Golden Core realm, he wouldn't be able to fight them. He would be dead. Then this is for you. Yue Ying placed a book on the table. If the flower is not well nourished, you know the consequences. Yes, senior, nodded Jiang Hao. He glanced at the book on the table. There was no title on the cover. So, it might not be an ordinary cultivation manual. Yue Ying got up and walked out. When she reached the door of the house, she turned back to him. Her gaze was unwavering and severe. It made him tremble in fear. Senior, are there any more orders for me? He asked because he couldn't take her gaze anymore. She looked so terrifying that he couldn't even look at her directly. This was how a powerful cultivator looked like. A single glance could invoke fear. About me? I would never say anything about senior, even if it means death, said Jiang Hao immediately. You would do better to remember it, said Yue Ying and left. I will come here often to check on the growth of the flower. If anything happens to it, you have to bear my wrath. Jiang Hao stood there, rooted to the spot. The woman had left. He did not move until he was sure she was truly gone. He then heaved a great sigh of relief. Her gaze had almost paralyzed him. But his heart had pounded. It had become so restless. Now that she was gone, it was calm and still once again. The experience was not very pleasant, to say the least. Jiang Hao looked at the book on the table and picked it up. He flipped through it. It was an introduction to spiritual energy, spirit, body, and breathing. It was very detailed. It was handwritten. The handwriting was very beautiful, too. Jiang Hao began to read every word carefully. The books laid out guidelines to regulate breathing, spiritual extension, and power control. If he practiced this every day, he could hide his cultivation perfectly. He could even infer the realm of others from their breathing, their flow of life blood, their display of power, and their spiritual extension. Not only that, as long as he mastered these things, he could achieve twice the result with half the effort for cultivation. This book can be considered a top-tier cultivation technique. It's a treasure. It seems that this woman is determined to get the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower was given to him by Elder Beizi. He had wanted to meet her again and request her to take it back. But now he wasn't so sure. The woman who wanted the flower was too powerful and he didn't dare refuse her. He only hoped that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower matured a little later so she could figure out another way. He hoped that Elder Beizi didn't want it back. The traders hadn't made a move yet so he couldn't be sure what Elder Beizi wanted. He picked up the formation map and looked at it. This was much easier. It would cost him 100 spirit stones or so. Fortunately, he didn't have to worry about spirit stones any longer. He had enough. There was another month left. He could earn a little more. It was already close to noon. Jiang Hao hurried to the spirit herb garden. It was the same. He saw some people there, but they all avoided him after word had gotten out that he had offended the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. They were afraid that if they befriended him, then the people of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion would hold them guilt by association. It made Jiang Hao realize that the Cliff of Broken Hearts didn't have as much prestige and privilege as the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. If anyone approached him at this time, they would either be a spy or a traitor who had nothing to fear. The big fish has taken the bait. I hope Elder Bazi doesn't take too much time to respond. It was impossible to understand who was stronger. He thought that the woman in red was definitely stronger than everyone, even Elder Bazi. But he didn't yet know how strong Elder Bazi was. All he knew with any certainty was that both were stronger than him, and he absolutely could not afford to provoke either of them. Jiang Hao brushed off these thoughts for now and focused on tending to the spirit herb garden. All the bubbles merged into his body. Dagger +1. He didn't receive cultivation and life blood. But he didn't care. After reading that book, he realized that he was more sensitive to strength and spirit. And he could already feel the improvement in his body. The next few days, he did not rush to sell his talismans. Instead, he read the book diligently. He had to first understand this book thoroughly before he could travel. Otherwise, if he met an expert who understood comprehensive examination, his cultivation level would be exposed. He activated the clear and pure heart ability, which drastically helped him understand and absorb the knowledge in the book. Chapter 18. It had been almost half a month since he had obtained the nameless manual. Jiang Hao had read it diligently and now had a rough grasp on how to hide his cultivation. As far as anyone knew, he was an early foundation establishment stage cultivator. He could continue to improve himself, and the purple lifeblood would conceal his cultivation from others. In the room, Jiang Hao exhaled in relief. He then opened his interface to check his status. Cultivation, middle foundation establishment stage. Supernatural ability, 9 revolutions death substitution, unique, daily appraisal, clear and pure heart. Lifeblood, 35/100, can be cultivated. Cultivation method, 38/100, can be cultivated. Supernatural ability, 0/3, cannot be obtained. It doesn't show the cultivation method. It seems to be a special technique, he noticed. Advancing to the early stage and the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage seemed to take a similar amount of lifeblood and cultivation. I wonder if I can advance in one go in the future. Jiang Hao could only try it again next time. Perhaps in about 2 or 3 months. If everything went smoothly, he would be able to advance quickly to the late stage of foundation establishment. The deadline for the compensation is almost near. I have to earn more spirit stones. Now that he could completely conceal his cultivation, there was no need to worry. He was curious if he could deceive that woman if she visited again. He wanted to see if she could find out his cultivation level once he advanced. For the first time, he was looking forward to her visit. Of course, she was extremely strong and also a bit strange. He had to be careful with her. It would be best if he didn't meet her. Jiang Hao walked to the spirit herb garden to find some bubbles. He took the bubbles and lamented that he had never seen intelligence as a reward from these bubbles. Otherwise, he could come up with new ways to make himself stronger quickly. He could even find a way to get out of his current predicament. Fortunately, although the increase in spirit and strength was insignificant, he could still clearly feel the change. His spirit and strength could only be enough to shake those in the Golden Core realm in 100 years. At noon, he left the spirit herb garden and went to the market. There weren't many people there, as usual. He saw Yang along the way. He went up to him to greet him, but the senior brother near him pulled Yang away. Jiang Hao didn't not chase after Yang. When Yang caught his eyes, he lowered his head as if he was ashamed. Jiang Hao understood. If he went and greeted Yang, he would be dragging his friend down. The people from Heavenly Joy Pavilion already had their eyes on Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao went to his spot and put up his stall. Most of the talismans he had today were the fire talismans, the spirit concentration talismans, and the divine sword talismans. He once thought of producing 10,000 sword talisman, but the cost was too high, and it took a lot of time, so he sought stability. Presently, he was still short of about 150 spirit stones. Each talisman was worth 5 spirit stones, so he needed to sell at least 30 of them. So far, he had around 50 talismans for sale. He put a dozen of them on display. If he put too many on display, they would not sell for more. After I fulfill my compensation, I'll make 10,000 sword talisman, thought Jiang Hao. After paying the 1,000 spirit stones he owed the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, he would be freer. Junior brother, how nice to see you again. Fairy Leng Tian said with a smile. I have been holding back from buying talismans from other stalls. I was looking for you. Hello, senior sister. It is good to see you again, too. Do you need more of the fire talismans? Asked Jiang Hao. He remembered she had ordered so many fire talismans before. Fairy Leng Tian shook her head. I don't want them for now. But do you have the 10,000 sword talisman? Not at the moment, said Jiang Hao. It's difficult to make. Then I'll take the godly sword talisman and each of the other talismans you have, said Fairy Leng Tian. 5 talismans for a total of 25 spiritual stones. You can have them for 22, senior sister, said Jiang Hao, handing out 5 talismans. Thank you. The quality of your talismans is good. And it's easy to talk to you about them, said Fairy Leng Tian honestly as she handed him 22 spirit stones. She always looked so fierce that whenever she smiled, it felt like you were in trouble. After putting those talismans in her bag, Leng Tian looked at him. Junior brother, I heard you offended the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, she whispered in a low voice. She didn't wait for him to respond. Junior brother, you have to be very careful. The people of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion are too greedy and also powerful. Don't leave the sect. It might be dangerous for you. After all, I have no other stalls where I can buy such good talismans. Jiang Hao nodded gratefully. He gave her a few extra divine walking talismans and fire talismans as thanks. She didn't stay for long and left. Not long after, Jiang Hao welcomed another guest. It was a man with a slightly pale face. Middle stage of foundation establishment. Jiang Hao. Junior brother Jiang? Recently, I have heard some senior brothers and sisters mention that you killed junior sister Yunruo, said Miao Qian. Jiang Hao had a bad feeling about this. This person was from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Is he here just by chance or is he deliberately looking for trouble? Wondered Jiang Hao. What does the senior brother want to say? Asked Jiang Hao politely. Nothing. I am just here to buy some talismans. How much are these? Asked Miao Qian, pointing at a spirit concentration talisman. That is a spirit concentration talisman. It costs 5 spirit stones. The fire talismans are 3 each, said Jiang Hao. Miao Qian smiled coldly. I want them all. How much is that total? All of them, thought Jiang Hao. He had known it in his heart that today would not go smoothly. Part 1 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.